Hey, before we start the show, I'd like to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Hackbright Academy. Hackbright Academy is an all-women coding boot camp in San Francisco. They were founded with the mission to provide women with a personalized path to a software engineering career. One of the most impressive things about the school is the tight-knit community they've created. They truly believe in empowering each other and working to change the ratio of women in the tech industry. Hackbright firmly believes that when you combine a community of like-minded, ambitious women and a network of strong support, the possibilities are endless. Check out their programs at hackbrightacademy.com.
We essentially want to be the communications platform that kids run to. If you hunker down and you build something that you would like, your first version is going to suck because you haven't listened to what people actually want to do. First hires are crucial, and culture as well. If we want to grow in platforms and in audience, we have to design for that. I've tried very, very hard not to work for anyone. I was trying to not hate the thing that I loved.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back. I'm your host, Noah Laphart, and today how Alvaro Sabido developed a way for kids to have story time on a video call with grandma. All this and more on Code Story. A born creative, Alvaro Sabido loves to travel and continuously be learning. His engineering background led him to love anything with an engine. And having worked in a diverse set of companies through consulting, IT, radio, and media, he became a natural problem solver, interested in innovating to make things better. When seeing a picture of someone in the military holding a book up to a webcam, attempting to read to their child back home, he set out to create a solution to integrate video chat and a children's book in what would eventually be called Caribu. Tell me about you outside of being involved in tech. What do you do outside of being a CTO?
Yeah, so I'm an engineer, I guess, by study, and that actually translates to a lot of my hobbies and passions. Pretty much on the passion side, if it has an engine and it goes fast, I'm into it. One of the coolest things I've done is I found an old racing motorcycle that my grandfather used to have in a barn and took it apart, cleaned it, built it back together. I don't necessarily have a mechanical engineering degree, but it's just the kind of things that interest me, how things are made. So a lot of that is, and music as well, and puzzles and anything that has to do with building things of any sort.
You said engineering, and you don't have a mechanical engineering. What engineering degree do you have?
I have a computer science degree, but before that, I have a minor in automotive engineering, actually. But it was more on the technical side of things than the mechanical. So that was kind of my passion was I wanted to go into cars and racing and whatnot on the technical side. But it turned out that I was just a lot better at the digital side. It was getting to a point where I was studying the thing and I wasn't really liking the way that it was taught, and so I was trying to not hate the thing that I loved. So then I just shifted over to computer science so I could remain the other part as a hobby.
Tell me about your career path up to this point. So what different twists and turns has your career taken?
I've tried very, very hard not to work for anyone. I think that kind of clashes with that, internal strive for just for building stuff and learning continuously. So I have worked in consulting, IT, services. I've worked in a media company as well as their systems architect and in a radio station and stuff. But really, always in the back of my mind is when I'm working on these different industries, I see little things that could be better, let's say. While I was in college, actually, I had a music promotion company where I would help young musical bands. I had, connections with recording studios, so I would get them their first solo and then sell them off to the record labels or get them their first single, let's say. And then I was in London, and I started out with a girlfriend at the time, and then I moved to London, and I had to kind of like put that on pause. And then in London, I went to do a master's there, and I had a branding agency. So completely different from, my tech background, let's say, studying wise, or the music part of the previous business. I had just like really random clients that through life and meeting people we were able to work with, which was really cool. That was like a few years ago, and during that time I came up with the concept of Caribu and have been developing that part for the last few years.
So it seems like you have a broad set of experiences, and you seem to be able to adapt to different business models, business types that you're working with, into what you're doing with Caribu now. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, and I think that's the fun part of this whole process. One of the things that they say is, that every day they're learning. It's really not for everyone. And, obviously of the things I've done, I could be, a video producer of like all the videos that I've built and ran for ads or promotion, or the designer, when we didn't have designer back in the team, that was just me. And yeah, definitely of all the different industries. And that would be the one thing I enjoyed in consulting, where you work with different industries. You get to be very creative about solving problems when you have a lot of different perspectives accumulated. I also grew up, around the world pretty much, from Madrid. My brother was born in Peru, and we grew up in Mexico and then Miami and then Madrid and London. So just meeting different people from different parts of the world, I think really planted the seed of this long distance communication for Caribu, but also allowed me to think in different ways and how different cultures, approach problems. And yeah, I think that has really shaped my progress.
So tell me how you got started with Caribu. You said you were working on the idea. Tell me about the origination story.
I was here at Imperial College studying this master's with a really cool name, Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Management. The first part was all like MBA stuff, the management part of accounting, economics, etc. And essentially there, we had what's called the business model competition for the masters, which we won that. We got some money. And then our professors, for the first time, I think ever in Imperial, they put us against the MBAs as well. We didn't win that. Technically, we tied for first because I don't think the masters can win an MBA. But we also won the prize money there. And the panel of people, which were, industry experts and investors and whatnot, basically said, guys, go out and build this because I try all the time, like, I kind of need this. So yeah, so basically, we got some money from these early wins, and in the core team there were 4 of us guys, and there were 2 girls as well. They had family businesses, so immediately after graduating they left back home. The 4 of us kind of stuck together. We had myself, Philip, who was the designer that I was partner of on the branding company, and then we had 2 other people that had worked always kind of done stuff for themselves, and we were very scrappy. So inside the core kind of group, we had, let's say, the core competences to build something. So we built a proof of concept, and it was really cool. Like, it was pretty simple. Just we centered on one thing. The first thing we did was we just figured out, of all the things that we could do, like, what is the one thing that parents miss most when they travel? Because that was kind of the initial concept, and it was books. Versus, we could have gone and let's put videos and let's put games and let's put all these things. So we really focused on that, and that's kind of how the concept was born.
How long did it take to build the initial prototype?
Like 3 months. Well, I guess technically 4 months, but it was ready at 3 months. We basically thought about, who this is for. In the beginning, it was only for tablets because that was the best experience, and we built it in a portrait mode because as we were mocking everything up, we noticed that, if a kid is holding the iPad horizontally in landscape, they're going to cover the camera. And it tends to be very heavy as well. So we're like, well, obviously, let's just put it the right way so you can see each other. Until we had to actually put books in it and talk to publishers. And so we graduated in September. In early December, we started getting our first content, and we started showing it off to smaller, UK publishers. And they were like, "Oh, cool, but our content is landscape, so make it landscape." And we're like, "Okay, but we're done with it now." And they were like, "No, like you either put in landscape or you don't have my content." So that was one of the things where it's good to listen to your users and do that part. But if you're going to work with a supplier, in our case, content supplier like publishers, you kind of depend on them too. So basically during December, we scrambled to do like pretty much a redesign of everything and just shift everything to landscape. And eventually on January 14th was the first version that we launched.
What tools did you use to build that initial prototype? What type of tech did you use to make it happen?
Yeah, it was pretty bootstrap. Obviously, I mean, we had some prize money, but it was just the three of us, and that definitely didn't cover any salaries or anything. So we still had side gigs, and I still had the branding agency. We definitely wanted to be lean on that and just kind of test the concept. Backend as a service company called Parse, and that later got bought by Facebook and then shut down by Facebook. Essentially, that allowed us to have a very free forever model where we had the database, and you could also run backend code, serverless code, which was very novel at the time. In just one service, essentially, we could run authentication, database, backend code, and any integration with any node library. So when we needed to connect to the video calling streaming service, we just did it through there. And then on the client side, it was just standard tablet iOS Xcode.
On the product side, iOS, Parse in the back end, what were you using for the streaming video?
So at the time, again, there was pretty much just the one, which was OpenTalk or TalkBox. I'm not actually even sure which one is the company and which one's the service. They were pretty much the only ones that were both production ready, but also had a lot of like really good features. And they were owned by Telefonica at the time. I think they've been bought and sold a couple times since then. But essentially, the two key things that we needed, obviously the video streaming, we needed to make sure as well that the bandwidth was kind of taken care of. And OpenTalk was very smart about that. So if you were slow internet, it would lower the bandwidth, and eventually like it would even shut down the video and leave the audio just so that the connection isn't broken.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted vCISOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's VANTA.com/codestory.
Okay, so you told me a little bit. So you moved from Parse to Firebase, but how else has the product progressed as you've worked and grown Caribu? How have you matured the product?
I think on the back end we kept it simple. And when we moved it was just Max and I. So it wasn't like we had a whole team to do a whole migration to a brand new like super system. So Parse was there, and I actually had a friend working at Firebase at the time, and he was telling me like we are production ready now, and like we're using pretty much just Google Cloud, and when we set it up, that's pretty much how it works. Like it's Firebase, but it's really just like Firebase is kind of just like a UI for a Google Cloud instance. So it's just friendlier. And a lot easier for the one person to manage. And so we kept it 100% serverless. All of our we don't have to worry about any servers, any maintenance, any load balancing or anything like that, which is great. And we can work with a single language. We can just work in JavaScript and we're good. So we followed that over to the client side as well last year when we did our larger seed raise, we basically shifted the app into React Native. That allowed us not only to reach the goal of being on Android as well, but to maintain that code sharing. So we're on Android phones, Android and iOS phones and tablets right now. And we've set up continuous integration and remote testing and all those things, which are leaps and bounds from what we had before.
I can definitely see the advantage from a team and single language technology basis to have everything on JavaScript. Was there any pains or issues going from native to React Native?
It was a pretty big decision. I had been for a while keeping up with a system where I obviously didn't know how long it was going to be, where I was going to be myself as the only engineer with Max, let's say. That part really interested me, and there's native script and there's React Native, and there was Ionic and a bunch of different versions. And the way kind of I would test that is I would pretty much just rebuild our website. So our website has gone from vanilla HTML, CSS, JavaScript to I then rebuilt it in PHP so I could learn the templating thing for a client we had. So I was like, okay, let me just learn this now. And then I rebuilt it in Angular so that we could host it basically for free on Firebase. That's one of the cool things it has. Yeah, it's free hosting. I mean, not free, but if you're just hosting a landing page, it's free forever essentially. So that was one of the things where, if we wanted to be lean, I need to build it in such a way that it is lean. So stop paying any hosting for anything and then just run it on Firebase for free. So I rebuilt it on that. And through there, I learned about, Ionic and hybrid apps and whatnot. And eventually, I did a ton of research and I saw that React Native, for the things that we were trying to do, was right at the moment where it would be viable for production. We also needed for them to catch up and offer, if not a React Native library, maintained by themselves, and something similar, or some sort of bridge that we could use as well. And that was very important, obviously, because the app looks deceptively simple, but it's a bit of a beast, and now more so obviously with Android and all the things we built.
How do you build your roadmap? How do you and Max put your heads together and figure out this is the most important thing to do next?
Now we are a team of 6. Our first hire was actually our amazing designer, Tiffany. She came in a little bit earlier as we were ready to finalize the product. We launched around October, this version 3, which is the React Native version. So we definitely, the first thing that we needed was design and just making sure that everything was up to the brand and whatnot, because we changed the brand completely visually. And now we have another, we have the React Native engineer, our lead engineer, and we have a product manager. And so Kalman basically came in, our product manager, in January, and he's been instrumental in how we go from Alvaro writing things on a whiteboard and Max saying oh, we should try this, and then I'm like, okay, cool, hold my beer, let me give it a weekend and see what happens with it. We're working on 2-week sprints, and we're still a small team, right? But now we have myself, product manager, developer, designer, and Max to kind of work through through our roadmap. Maybe Max and I on the business side, and I work with the other guys on the actual features, functionalities. Brought in weekly ICE meetings. So essentially we come in and we propose changes, and the one rule is that we can't propose anything if we don't have data to prove it, or some sort of investigation done where we can't come in and be like, oh, it would be cool if we did this. And it's okay, cool, you think so, but show me, someone else that's doing it, or show me it's been successful. That kind of mechanics, so that we make sure that we don't waste our time, and that the things that we do try are because they have a high chance of working. So those ICE meetings, it's impact, confidence, and effort, and then we basically just score them every week, and we run on 2-week sprints, releases, and then we green light some of the items, and the circle runs again, and then on Mondays we have a retrospective meeting, just looking at what we did the week before, and where the things that we greenlit, how we are on them. And because we are a fully distributed, except for Max and I that are in Miami, but everyone else we're fully distributed. So
This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com.
So I think one of the best things that Kalman did as well is, set up this distinct dynamic where everyone is separate, but we are always, on top of everything, and we are always in constant communication, and we work as if we were in the same team.
I'm interested. How did you go about building your team? Early hires in a startup are critical because team culture is absolutely important for startup success. How did you go about picking the individuals for your team, and what characteristics did you look for?
So I worked with an amazing developer, and together we kind of built this thing took us about 5 months or something. And we basically rebuilt it from scratch. So I think that was pretty good on that. And so what we thought was things we shouldn't be doing, and things I shouldn't be doing, let's say, is designing everything from, email templates to if we're running Facebook ads to, user interface, literally everything needs to be designed. So we were like, okay, definitely need a designer and someone that knows about it and branding and stuff. Let's go with the head of design. And then the other thing that we need to grow, and we need to figure out creative ways to reach our demographic and whatnot. So we were like, okay, we need two people, a head of design and a head of growth. Our head of design, Tiffany. So we worked with this head of growth and basically figured out with the new release, didn't go as expected, obviously. And we had to spend a lot of time, on maintaining the product and working out some kinks, as it was a, from scratch built. So what we figured is let's take a step back. We are funded. We have runway. Let's take a step back and just, focus on the product for a little bit. And so that shifted into now we need to grow on the product side. So we need an engineer. He came in, the second person. He came in early December. So again, let's just focus on product. And then we brought in Kalman in January, who is a product manager. Those three people were basically, today forms the product team and are 100% focused on that. And that's what we have been doing for the past, few months since January of let's, narrow down exactly on the product. Let's do product market fit surveys. Let's do, everything around the product. And culture for sure has been fundamental. And I think the team that we built are, like we always say, rock stars, and they really are, but they're also just amazing people. Early on, in February, we did our first team retreat. After that was the core team, and we weren't really looking to hire anymore. And it was just amazing to meet everyone and, hang out, but also, figure out, okay, now we have a team, where do we go? Yeah, we've been incredibly lucky with the people that we found. Obviously, we took time to carefully bring people in, and Max's philosophy is hire slow, fire fast, which I agree with. You're gonna be working with them, especially in a startup, almost 24/7, and in a small team of 5 people. If one, or two are not in the mindset or something, then that may very well break your company. First hires are crucial, and culture as well.
Tell me about how you're factoring in scaling. So you've got a bigger team now. You've got a head of growth that is pushing exposure and traction of usage in the product. How does that translate to how you scale the technology?
So one of the interesting things that we kind of found out when we, at the beginning of the year, we were like, let's go back to step one. Let's figure out, first of all, who is this for? And that's a question that gets asked kind of like a couple times in the beginning, and then really gets lost. And I would highly recommend teams to kind of do this almost on a quarterly basis. So we ran this, what's called like a product market fit series of surveys, and find out that while one of the things that one of the people we're targeting is traveling parents and whatnot, the people that were actually paying us were the grandparents. They were the one kind of driving the relationship, and they wanted to keep the relationship with the grandkids and whatnot. So yeah, that kind of shifted. We're like, okay, because we're in this very scrappy and very focused mindset about looking back, let's focus entirely for the next quarter on just building it for grandma, what we call glammas, which are 50 to 65s. They're a group of people that have a bit more time than the parents. They definitely have a lot more money and have the motivation to really keep connected with the grandkids. So that's what I mean by grandparents. Not we're not talking like 90-year-olds. To be specific, like my mom is a grandma, let's say, and she's not 90, and she uses it with my 3-year-old niece all the time. So as we do that, that kind of it shifts a bit the roadmap. Now we have to focus on how to work. Before it was kids and parents, so the app is very kid designed. Obviously, if the kid isn't interested or isn't engaged by the content or the design, then we lose the entire family. So we do have to play with both sides. And I think on the scaling side, offering things that the younger grandparents would find useful, definitely shifted our feature roadmap a little bit. Now we're looking at some things that we weren't really prepared for. But the good thing is that the cloud is extremely flexible. So we're dealing with that now, and that's one of the trickier things, I think, for any early stage, I'm not even going to say company, just concept or anything that you're building, is figuring out how it's going to be used in the future. So how to structure everything so that it will allow for future change or future use for something different than what it was intended. I'm very, very particular about naming things, because I know that you can start, don't call everything a book if you may have videos or activities or whatever, or games. And so the entire architecture of the system is based on books, but then you can't actually put anything else, is going to be a huge migration issue. So just little things like that, just making sure that when you set up the structure, you have room, so that if something changes in the content or in the way that you have to access that, and we're working a lot with dynamic recommendation of content now, and that has to have a very specific structure. If we want to think about not even with our demographic, but just even in the future, looking at ourselves as sort of content platform, just look at Netflix and say, okay, we want to do stuff that they're doing. How do we set ourselves up so that eventually, as our team grows, we're able to offer the level of recommendation that Netflix or Spotify has. And so we have to think maybe years ahead, but we have to do that now. Otherwise, when we set about doing it, we're going to spend a good amount of time just refactoring a bunch of stuff. If we want to grow in platforms and in audience, we have to design for that.
So tell me about a mistake that you guys made early on or are making now, and how did you and the team react to it?
Yeah, the first one I talked about, thinking about our customers, but forgetting completely about the people, about our suppliers, let's say. So, I talked about building in a portrait, but then the content was in landscape, so we had to shift. That was definitely a mistake, and we never did that again. When we changed UI and stuff, we definitely worked with our content providers. I think another mistake that is, I don't know if directly caused, but basically took us to the point that where we had to this year go back to that square one and rethink who are we, what are we for, etc. Is we were trying to build for everyone, and this particularly for us. And if you think once you see Caribu, like working, or just go on your website and see what it looks like. You get into this thing of like, oh, there's traveling parents, there's separated families, there's children's hospitals, and you start going into all of these things where there's just family members like myself and my 3-year-old niece, and you go down kind of the rabbit hole and you try to be everything for everyone. And that was definitely a mistake, I think, in our focus, primarily because you have a certain budget for promoting this thing and trying to get it out to the world, and then like who do you promote it to, right? Do you do Facebook ads for, or do you run ARP ads, or do you run on airports or whatever? So you start throwing spaghetti at the wall essentially, and that takes up a lot of time and money. So definitely it helped us to just grab our most valuable user and focus on them.
What does the future look like for Caribu and for your team?
I'm really excited. So our one of the things we did in our retreat was as a team now, Max and I figure out what's our mission and vision. We talked about it would be really cool, like visions are these really awesome sentences that we kind of have a poster of, but we essentially want to be the communications platform that kids don't run away from, basically, or that kids run to. And this is kind of key, right? Like we could make the greatest product for grandma, but if the kid is not interested, then that's it. And so while we are building for ease of use of the parent or grandparent, we're spending a ton of time on what could we do to keep the kids engaged. I don't know if you've ever had a video call with like a 2 or 3-year-old, but you can't really like interrogate a 2-year-old. There's only so much you can talk about, and they get bored immediately and they just run away. So we've been working a lot with activity sheets. You have the real-time kind of book, and turn pages and pointer and whatnot, but we also have this drawing feature where you're drawing in real time both sides and erasing, and we built a lot of really cool different activities for kids, and we've seen pretty much the greatest increase in engagement and retention from this type of content. And it makes sense, right? Like now calls have multiplied in length, because not only are we working obviously on stability and memory performance, so the calls are better, but the content itself is engaging, and this is far and wide a completely different experience than like Skyping a kid. We're moving a lot towards how do we make it the most valuable, just generally in the family, right? How do we engage the kids? How do we help even grandparents that maybe they live away and they don't see a lot of people. We also want to keep both on the literacy side with the books and the kids growing up. That's definitely on our mission. And then as well, help with loneliness on the grandparent side, help with activity. We're working on some, you leave your iPad on the table and you like jump around and do some silly stuff. There's a lot of stuff we can do with AR that we could implement, really quickly. There's a ton of, like the Snapchat lenses and whatnot. There's a lot of really cool things that we can do around making the most, like the funnest video call, or, cross-generational communication in families.
Name an architect or CTO or tech person, or even if they're not related to tech at all, someone you look up to and why.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go basic on this one with Musk. I think Elon Musk has that kind of brain which finds this, and I we're obviously on completely different levels, but I relate to him in that he finds a problem that humans have been putting up with, just like holding up a book to a laptop, which is just unnecessary. And he's like, well, I can think of a solution. He happens to be a billionaire, so he can execute on that. He has that thing of like, why are we putting up with these things when it could, life could be so much better? Let me think about how I can solve this. And obviously, there's the economical factor for it, but there's so much more about just for the greater good type scenario. I don't know if you saw the Neuralink keynote, but I remember reading before it was presented that it's basically like like not kind of the Matrix, but like Minority Report maybe, and the entire application for the near future is how to help people with Parkinson's, how to help people with motor disabilities, and these are solvable problems that no one has really dared enough to think about. And so I really admire him for that.
If you could go back to the beginning of Caribu, what would you do differently, or what would you consider taking another approach on?
I think definitely, going back to being everything for everyone. I think focus. We really struggle to find focus, and I guess when we were bootstrapped for a bit. You're trying everything, but I would have really, because we spent well over a year, going around and trying to do everything. I think the lack of focus hurt us a lot. I think if we had been more specific about what we were building and who it was for, we would have had a greater earlier growth. I think.
For someone who's just starting down this road of a startup or has an idea, as a tech person, what advice would you give them that you wish you would have known?
Definitely figure out if what you're building, like what's the actual, if there's a pain point. There's the market size, but I don't think there's anything wrong with building what's called a lifestyle company. If you build something and there's a small market but people really use it and people changes their lives, that's enough motivation for someone. If you're going to entrepreneurship to be a billionaire, then that's a different path. But definitely, and it echoes the issue about focus as well. It's just try to figure out the one thing that is the actual pain point, and don't get bogged down on the cool stuff that you could build, the cool features, because it generally, like, if you're building something that you are the user of, you're going to be building it mostly for yourself, and the vast majority of the companies are kind of for that, at least on the tech startup side. Obviously, the one thing that was interesting for us is that, I mean, we neither Max or I had kids. We were not obviously grandparents either, so we were building something that we ourselves are not the users, and that really forced us to strive for that, to learn everything we could about who we're building it for and why it's valuable for people. I think that's one of our successes, is being able to extract ourselves a little bit from what we were building, so that we could see it from the outside based on data and research and whatnot. If you hunker down and you build something that you would like, your first version is going to suck because you haven't listened to what people actually want to do.
How can people support Caribu moving forward? How can they reach out and support you and the team?
Well, right now, currently, we do have a WeFunder campaign, and this is something that kind of follows with our mentality of bringing people in, and we had a pretty good community of people that really helped us when we were just two people, and so we wanted to open this up for all those people that couldn't really get on our cap table now for different reasons, and they really wanted to participate. But also a lot of our customers and users, where one of the largest drivers of the entire team is we get these beautiful messages and emails and calls, families that this has really kind of changed the dynamic that they have and has really brought them closer together. So we wanted to open it for them as well, to be part of the Caribu family. So we have that, we just opened that up in June, and we have about a month and a bit. So on WeFunder, Caribu should be featured. Any sort of partnerships with, we're working with a military foundation, or we want to work with, companies like their ERP or something like that. Any sort of partnership that would make sense, and it doesn't have to be scalable. It just has to be interesting, and it has to reach people with a real pain point.
Well, Alvaro, thank you for being on the Code Story podcast. Really appreciate your time and you telling your story today.
Thank you. It was fun.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is a production of TouchTap LLC and is hosted and produced by Noah Laupart, co-produced and edited by George Macharko. Special thanks to Deanna Chapman and Stephanie Campisi for their promotional support. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Breaker, or the podcasting app of your choice. Make sure to check us out at codestory.co or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn.